spooky friends. We're on day 30 of our 31 Days of Horror Movie Villains, and today we're going to talk about The Babadook. The film basically follows this mother and her son, Amelia, and her son, Samuel, and we learn very quickly that they're struggling a lot. We learned that Amelia's husband died on the way to the hospital when she was about to give birth to Samuel, and so we see Amelia kind of has some resentment against her son. He's honestly a huge handful and really hard to deal with. And see, Amelia has done so little to kind of address her grief that she's completely pushed the memories of her husband aside. She even has hid all of his things like in the basement. She doesn't want to really address Samuel's birthday because she just cannot handle the thought of that day. One day, her and her son find this book called Mr. Babadook. I'm not really sure where it came from, but Amelia sits down and starts reading from this book. Weird, disturbing imagery, and it talks about the Babadook, this man with like a top hat. The book kind of promises that you cannot get rid of the Babadook. As time goes on, it kind of promises that Amelia will start to become the Babadook and do things that the Babadook wants her to do. Samuel starts freaking out. She tries to get rid of the book multiple times, and it keeps kind of popping back up. It just reassures the message, you can't get rid of the Babadook. Samuel starts to exhibit more and more behavioral problems. He starts lashing out physically. He's really aggressive, and we see Amelia is just not in a good headspace to be a parent. Stuff keeps continuing with the story of the Babadook, so much so that Samuel starts exhibiting like physical symptoms, like he starts convulsing because he's just overwhelmed with so much anxiety over this figure. At one point, Amelia goes into the basement. She sees like a hallucination of her deceased husband, and he basically like tells her that he wants the child brought to him. After she sees her husband for the first time, she goes upstairs and she starts to really like completely go off the deep end, and she starts doing things that the Babadook seemingly wants her to do. She cuts the phone line when her son is trying to call the neighbor to take him away from the house. He's clearly very afraid. Amelia starts getting more and more aggressive, so much so that she like tries to break open a door to get to her son. Something happens, and she wakes up and she realizes that she's tied down in the basement. Her son has tied her there. Hey, I love you, mommy, but I know you don't love me, and I need to save you from the Babadook. But eventually she like kind of comes out of it. She vomits up all this like black liquid, and it's like the Babadook has kind of like exited her body almost. And her son reminds her, you can't get rid of the Babadook, and he gets sucked upstairs to the room. Like, the Babadook is clearly like thrashing her son around the room. It's very scary. Amelia asks the Babadook, what do you want? And then she gets another vision of her deceased husband. She has to face her grief, her trauma head on. Like, the Babadook approaches, but she tells the Babadook to leave her son alone or else, and it kind of retreats back into the darkness. Later on, we see Amelia and her son again. Some time has passed. She is now being honest with herself. Like, she's having honest conversations with people, letting them know, like, this is why his birthday is so hard. They, like, pick a bunch of worms, and she delivers the worms to the basement door. And it shows that the Babadook is still in the house. When we get to the end of the movie, it's incredibly clear that the Babadook symbolizes grief. She's kind of facing like the 5 stages of grief, and eventually she accepts what's going on, because you experience a loss, a trauma that great, you're never going to get rid of that. It's going to live with you forever. You just have to learn to live with it. And so the Babadook represents that trauma, that grief. Amelia has eventually, finally, at the end of the film, learned how to deal with it, how to live with it. I think it beautifully symbolizes grief and what can happen when you ignore your grief and you don't work through it in a healthy way.